Okay, so we're going to get started by introducing meditation 101. So, what is it? What is meditation? What's the first image that comes to mind? When I first heard about meditation, the first image that came to my mind, and honestly, I've been meditating for a very long time, been teaching a long time, and this is the image that comes to my mind. Is somebody cross-legged on the floor, their eyes closed, like looking super chill. Right? That's kind of the image that we have for what we think meditation is. And that is a way to meditate. Sitting down, closing your eyes, focusing on your breath, breathing meditation. That is a form of meditation, but it's not the only way that you can meditate. Riley, getting your mind familiar with what you want. Brilliant. Perfect definition. Meditation is a technique in familiarity, training your mind to become familiar with something. And that's a kind of a weird association, right? We don't often think, oh, my mind is super familiar with this, but our mind is very familiar with a lot of things. And as a result of that, what happens? Think about something you're super familiar with. Maybe like walking, right? Been walking a while, I would say. You can do it pretty, you don't have to really think about the mechanics of walking anymore, right? Unless unfortunately you had an accident or something like that. But we can walk pretty naturally, right? We don't have to think about it. It doesn't take a lot of mental effort for us to do it. Now, my brother just had his first kiddo a couple months ago, and hey, the kid can't walk. All of us here, there was a time where walking was near impossible, right? We're like, what do you want me to do? What? How am I going to do this? Move my legs like this from this area to over there? It did not come naturally to us. We had to practice, right? In order to go from I can't walk at all to I can walk while doing a million other things, all that was involved in there was just practice, repetition, our mind, our body, everything about us becoming familiar with what is needed to walk. Right? And the result is we can just do it now. The same is true for anything that you've learned, right? Driving a car, riding a bike. Hey, Beverly. Thanks, Gail. I appreciate that. Yeah, being an uncle is pretty easy. All these things that come very naturally to us, right? Putting on my glasses in the morning. I don't know. You don't have to think about it anymore. It's all based in familiarity. The same is true for mental mind states, right? So when we think about meditation, we often associate relaxation with it, being calm, not stressed. Meditation is not creating calmness. It is teaching you to become really familiar with relaxed you. Relaxed you? That's in there. And we would like for it to be always present, always at the forefront. And that is a possibility for us, right? All that's involved in being more relaxed is becoming so familiar with that relaxed version of yourself that you don't have to try as hard to be relaxed. That's what meditation is doing for us. It's giving us choice. It's teaching us to choose what we want to focus on. That way we can become familiar with it, and that thing comes naturally to us. Now, we're going to talk a lot about an overwhelmed mind today, and the power of familiarity goes both ways, good and bad, right? So if you think about something like anger, getting frustrated or whatever, happens pretty naturally. We don't have to really try, right? Somebody says something to us, boom, angry. Now, patience takes effort, right? Sometimes we have to stop. Hold on a second. I got to clear my head here. I need to just be, think things through and be patient, right? It takes effort to do that. This is not because we are incapable of being more patient than, frustrated. It's just that our mind has had a lot of practice getting annoyed and it's become pretty familiar with it. So we have to start to dictate which part of the seesaw you want to be more prevalent, right? Patience frustration, right? Being anxious, being relaxed, right? All of these mental states, we can become familiar with the ones we want to. That way they show up more regularly in our life. Cool? So that's all well and good. But how do we go about starting to do this wonderful thing that we're talking about? So the first step, and this is, if you have dabbled in meditation before, you've probably done some breathing meditation. The first thing that's usually taught is breathing meditation. And breathing meditation is an act of pacifying thoughts. Your mind's really busy. You got a lot going on in there. All day long. Hey, I got work to worry about. Oh, I'm late for this event. Oh, what am I going to eat for dinner? Like just all day. And when our mind is really packed full of all these cluttered thoughts, we can't sift through it to find what we want, right? It's like if you had a big old mess, right? We can't find what we're looking for. So we're going to clear away some of the mess. We're going to clear away some of our thoughts. And then what's going to happen is we're going to be able to see a little bit more clearly. Maybe we'll be like, hey, oh, relaxed me. I'm starting to see that version of myself. Let's get a little familiar with that. This is called single-pointed concentration. It's the kind of fancy way of saying meditating. We're going to focus on one thing. We're going to focus on one thing so exclusively that all the other things that are normally clamoring for our attention, they're going to fade a little bit. You ever been really in the zone at work or something like that? Working on a Excel sheet or something like that? What happens? You lose track of time. I work remotely, I get really plugged into work. What happens? I don't hear any of the noises. Sometimes my partner's calling my name. I don't even hear it. Those distractions that are normally really prevalent, that are pulling our attention away from what we're trying to focus on, when we are single-pointedly focused, what happens is they start to fade a little bit, right? So we are going to practice doing this intentionally by focusing on our breath. And breathing meditation is a really good starting point for a lot of reasons. One of the reasons I think it's the best starting point is because it teaches you a very important lesson about meditation. And that is that you do not need specific external conditions or circumstances to meditate. Sometimes we think we need perfect quiet. Sometimes we think we need to be by a lake, or we need to go on a week-long retreat, right? To clear our head. No, we just need a little bit of time, patience, effort, and our breath. And we can learn how to start to take back ownership of our thoughts, take back control of what we want to focus on. Cool? So let's do a breathing meditation now together. And if this is your first time, from a purely instructional standpoint, there's not many steps. There's really 3, almost 2.5. So the first is we're going to choose to focus on our breath, right? So there's some intention here, right? Sometimes we accidentally get really plugged into something, and that's cool. But we want to practice doing this on purpose, to train our mind to look forward to doing this, really. So we're going to choose. We're going to say to ourselves, I'm going to focus on my breath. And that's it for the next 5 minutes. Cool? And then, anytime we notice our attention drifting a bit, right? Doesn't have to be like drifting into some, detailed story. Anytime we notice like, I was kind of like spacing over there. I was thinking about something that happened earlier or something I got to do later. All we're going to do is say, not right now to those thoughts. Get to them later. And then we're going to bring our attention back. Choosing to focus single-pointedly on your breath, noticing when your attention drifts, bringing your attention back. That is breathing meditation. We are training our mind to focus on something. And as a result, good familiarity with that thing. Okay? So let's do it. Get comfy. Now, I referenced the old meditation image of sitting on the floor. If you enjoy doing so, go right ahead. You do not need to do that. You can be in a comfy chair. You can be laying down. Maybe it's nighttime, you had a long day. Go ahead, lay down. Doesn't matter. just be relatively comfortable. That way you're not worried about, being uncomfortable and thus not being able to focus on your breath as best as you can. Cool. So get nice and comfy. Go ahead and close your eyes, and I'm going to guide us through about a 5-minute breathing meditation. Okay. Whenever we start a meditation, always just take a moment and check in with yourself. How are you feeling right now? What is your mind up to? Maybe you're happy. Maybe you're upset. Maybe you're feeling really energetic. Or maybe lethargic, fatigued. Whatever it is, it does not matter. There is no good or bad, right or wrong way to be feeling right now. We're just noticing. We are practicing noticing what our mind is up to. This is a really important technique to develop. It's called mindfulness. We'll talk about that today. So now just check in. Ask yourself, how am I doing in this moment? Having done that, you can now choose to focus single-pointedly on your breath. Breathing in and out, gently, naturally. You do not need to change anything about how you normally breathe. Do not need to take big, deep inhales. You do not need to forcefully exhale. Just breathe exactly as you normally would, very naturally, in and out. And allow yourself to relax a little bit into your chair or cushion. Single-pointedly focused on your breath, on each moment of breathing, following the air as it takes its journey from the atmosphere into your nose, paying attention as the air sits inside your body, and then following it as it exhales, completing its cycle, and then starting again, in and out, gently, naturally. At some point, you'll likely notice that your attention drifts a bit. Maybe you're thinking about something that happened earlier today. Maybe you're planning for something you have to do later after this class. Whenever you notice that this has happened, no big deal. We can just very gently say, not right now to those thoughts, we'll get to them later. And then guide your attention back to breathing. Back to following the air as it moves in and out. Fully present with our breath. A moment-to-moment awareness of breathing in and out. This moment, which gives way to this moment. This moment. Breathing in and out, gently, naturally, as you begin to relax even more into your chair or cushion. Keep bringing your attention back to your breath whenever you notice it's drifted. This process of choosing to focus on your breath, noticing when your attention drifts, and being able to bring your attention back to your breath. That is meditation. You are meditating right now. You are a meditator. You are actively training your mind. Training your mind to be calm, to focus, to pay attention to what is important to you in this moment. How wonderful. So just for the next couple of moments, continue to breathe in and out, gently, naturally. And just enjoy sitting here, breathing. That's it. Okay, when you're ready, you can open your eyes. Welcome back. Gerard, I hope you're okay in the hurricane. Thanks for tuning in. How'd that go? So that was a pretty standard breathing meditation, nothing too fancy. 3 steps that we repeat indefinitely. We're choosing to focus on our breath. We're noticing when our attention drifts and we're bringing it back. That's it. Sometimes when we start meditating, we're like, oh, I get it. The goal is that I have no distractions. I will never get distracted. My mind will be perfectly still on my breath and will not be tempted by any noise or anything. No. That's going to happen. The goal of meditation is not to never get distracted, but rather to begin to notice when you're distracted earlier on in the process. Because the earlier on you notice it, the more easily you can get back on track. And we're going to talk about that a lot today. Cool. Gail, it's crazy because those 5 minutes always feel like I rested for an hour. What an interesting takeaway. Huh? I think that our mind is our mind is so powerful. It is though, and like it's computing so many things at once. And so when we give our mind a chance to just focus on one thing, our mind's like, okay. There might be some resistance. At first it's like, what are you doing? I got a million things to focus on. But as we train it, our mind starts to look forward to it. And yeah, it starts to feel really restful, really relaxing to do even just 5 minutes like we did. Cool. Okay. So if you have any questions about breathing meditation or meditation in general or whatever, you can feel free to ask me. But I'm going to move on to our topic, which is a really good one. And I would say that this is probably one of the more common things people would like to do with meditation. And that is kind of managing our overwhelming thoughts. Now, when I usually teach this class, I very specifically gear in on anxiety because that is a very common one. It's a huge entry point into meditation. I personally got into meditation for like clinical anxiety or whatever. And so I usually focus on that. But the kind of beauty of this system that we're going to talk about, this kind of 3-part system, is that it's not just for anxiety. It works really well for anxiety, but it also works for getting frustrated, right? It also works for feelings of jealousy or any other kind of mental mind state that we're trying to deal with, right? So I think whatever has brought you here, this topic, I think, is really, it provides a really good foundation of how we can use meditation to benefit us on a daily basis. Cool? Okay. So we're going to talk about 3 different things that we can do to help when our mind's feeling overwhelmed. And these 3 things are they kind of like go sequentially, right? We're doing one, then we'll go to the other, and we'll go to the other, right? And so when you're practicing this on your own, you might just be on the first one for a while, and that's cool, right? So don't feel overwhelmed. I'm just trying to provide, different information for different people. We all connect with different things. So when we're saying managing our overwhelmed mind, what we're talking about is our mind being agitated. When we think about the word agitated, we think like, I'm pissed off or whatever, I'm mad. But an agitated mind can be any sort of agitation, right? We talked about anxiety. We talked about loneliness. Like, these are all levels of agitation. Our mind is a little out of balance, right? It's very into this one negative thought. So our goal today, and using meditation to kind of help manage these thoughts, is to start to break down the steps involved from our mind going from from okay to not okay. We talked a bit about this last week. We looked at what is our mind doing when it goes from okay to not okay. And where we ended last week was that one of the most important things to start to work on with regards to meditation and managing feelings of being overwhelmed, an overwhelmed mind, agitated mind, whatever, is working on recognition. Mindfulness is kind of the word here with recognition. And mindfulness is a very buzzwordy word these days, which is cool. It's out there, which is great. People are exposed to it. But maybe that, you hear it all over the place. You're like, what does that even mean anymore? I don't even know what that means. So mindfulness is an active awareness of your thoughts, moment to moment, for a purpose, and a very important purpose. And that purpose is so you can act on those observations of your thoughts in a skillful way, right? Recognition. In order to take action on feelings of being overwhelmed, whether it's anxiety or overwhelmed with frustration with somebody you're working with, we have to realize what's going on. We have to notice that it's happening. Otherwise, what happens, right? Just kind of snowballs, right? There's cartoons where the snowball just keeps getting bigger as they roll down the hill. And then there's this massive snowball, and we can't even see ourselves in it, right? So the earlier we catch what our mind is doing, the easier it is to manage what our mind is doing. Act on one's observations in a skillful way. Beautiful, Sherry. Beautiful. So an analogy I like to use for mindfulness is if you think about a forest fire, right? Now, if you were in the forest, I don't know what you're doing there. You're just kind of taking a jaunt through the forest, and you see a flame pop up, right? Forest fire starts with a flame. and you happen to be there, and you're very diligent about hydrating, and you have a big old gallon of water for yourself, and you go, oh no, and you just dump the water on that fire. What happens? It goes away, right? Fire extinguished. Very manageable. Now, if you did not notice the fire, you were like way off in the distance, or I don't know, you're like, I don't know what you'd be doing. But if you didn't notice that the fire started, what happens? That's fire spreading. That's my sound effect for fire spreading. And forest fires are a thing that happen regularly, and the larger they get, the harder they are to contain, right? So your mind works exactly like this. And we often try to act on feelings of frustration, anxiety, agitation when the fire has spread. And it is very possible, you've probably done it, to extinguish that fire when it's spread. But it is more difficult. It takes a lot more effort. So we're going to the first technique we're going to really try to become adept at is recognizing these feelings of overwhelmed, like our mind being overwhelmed, earlier on in the process. Two things. Good news, when you are doing meditation, you're also practicing mindfulness, right? What were we just doing? We are sitting down and we are breathing. And what are we doing after that? We're paying attention to what? When our mind starts to focus on not breathing, right? And so that's how we're building up our little mindfulness skill to be able to notice, hey, yep, my mind's drifting a bit. Now, at first, maybe you're like, I don't know, you're like really deep into that other thought that you drifted to. You're like, got your whole dinner planned or something. But over time, maybe like you're like, oh, I was going to think about dinner, but now I'm not. Goodbye. So we're going to catch it earlier. Easier to get back on track, too. So meditation has mindfulness built in, which is great. But I know look, we're not meditating for 12 hours a day. So it's good to find other ways to practice mindfulness in our kind of normal day-to-day routine. And I mentioned this last time. I'm going to mention it again because I think it's really helpful. Set an alarm on your phone. If you hate alarms, maybe a Post-it note by your computer before you go to work, or by the coffee machine that you go to with your eyes bleary in the morning. And on this note or alarm, whatever, this is your mindfulness alert, right? When you look at this or hear this alert, you're going to stop what you're doing and just check in with yourself, exactly like we did in the meditation. And you're not going to do anything about it. We're not doing anything about it. We're just practicing noticing. How do I stop myself from the attachment to the idea of reaching bliss while meditating? Though I am practicing daily, I haven't had a moment of bliss in a while. Oh, man. That is an amazing question. Very deep. And on a personal level, I've been meditating for like 15 years now, teaching for about 10. This is the thing that I really struggled with the most. Because when you start meditating, you're like, I feel great. And then you want to feel great. You want to feel great. You want to feel great. You want to feel great, right? And then sometimes you're going to sit down and you're going to meditate and you don't feel great because your mind's really busy. You had a crappy day or whatever. And so then we start to label our meditations good meditation, bad meditation. But there is no good or bad meditation. All right. The situation that we're in day to day changes. Sometimes it's easy for us to settle in. Sometimes it's not, but we're practicing. It is a practice. And even when you sit down and you haven't kind of felt that really lovely, light, warm, blissful feeling, it's important to know that you're still making huge progress. It's a really, really important aspect of learning meditation. And it is not easy. I really did struggle with this a really long time. And attachment is a very deep topic. And why don't I do a class on attachment next week? I don't think I've done that in a long time, or maybe ever, because it's pretty involved. But since you asked, let's do it. Sound good? Okay. Great question. Thanks. Sherry, chasing the dragon. Yeah, exactly. Right. We're starting to label things. Right? We're starting to label things, which is not always great, right? Because there's a lot of factors that go into if we're feeling good or not, right? Sherry, cool. I will make a note to do an attachment class next week. Done. Committed to my memory. Riley, I tend to get distracted sometimes by my to-do list when doing a mindful exercise. Any suggestions? I just keep practicing. Well, right there, just keep practicing is great. To-do lists are an example of attachment. Right? So I'll save this for next week, but I would recommend definitely check that out, because to-do lists can contribute to feelings of attachment, right? And to-do lists are great. I'm not trying to say that they're not, but recognizing the difference of like, this is how I would like for things to go versus this is how they should go is very different, right? Cool. Andre, I think our ability to focus and meditate also has to do with our surroundings. A lot going on right now. So it takes even more mindfulness. Yeah, like, and that's natural. You know, when we first start, if there's a construction going on outside, we're going to be like, I can't meditate like this. You know, like the things going on around us, like very immediately, or, in the news, like the world, the things that are weighing on us, they all contribute, right? But sitting down and practicing is perfect, right? If you are sitting down and if you're sitting down and trying, that's perfect. That's it. Cool. There's no good or bad meditation. Thank you. Yeah, that is a very hard thing to really internalize, but yes, that is it. That is it. Cool. How to meditate while eating. Lots of thoughts run in my mind when I eat. Man. Another good question. I do a whole class on how to meditate while doing activities. So since I've already committed to an attachment class next week, 2 weeks from now, if I remember, I will do that one. But that is one I teach pretty regularly. So if you go on my YouTube channel, you can probably find that. But there are starting to learn how to meditate outside of just sitting down with your eyes closed is super important, right? Because we're busy, right? But we eat every day. So if we turn eating into meditation, we're meditating every day. Good discussion. Cool. Okay. So mindfulness alarm. Okay. That's what we're going to start to do. Very simple. And we're not acting on it. We're just noticing. We're just taking note. And then we can go back to being annoyed or whatever, right? We're getting our mind, we're normalizing, checking in. Right now, it's not normal. We don't check in with ourselves. We don't check in with ourselves until it's too late, right? The fire has spread. So this is a really good thing to practice, right? Okay. So we've practiced this a lot. Nina, didn't think you could meditate while doing activities. Yeah. See, so this is the beauty of meditation. All that is required for something to be meditation is you intentionally choose to focus on it single-pointedly. Notice when you're no longer focusing on it single-pointedly, bring it back. That's it. We can meditate on walking. We can meditate on chewing. We can meditate on brushing our teeth. We can meditate on anything. It's not just our breath. Cool. Okay. So, great. We're starting to get good at recognizing things, right? We're paying attention to what our mind's doing. We're getting good at it. Yay. Now what? I've recognized that my mind is feeling overwhelmed. Look, I'm starting to feel overwhelmed. I've detected it. Now what? 2 things. And first one, we don't like this one. The first one is acceptance. Oh, I just said the word and I can feel it. We're like, ah. Right? Now, acceptance is a very important step in learning how to deal with our overwhelmed mind. And it is not, acceptance is not, let's put up with it. That's not acceptance, right? That's like begrudging acceptance. It's like anger. We're pissed, but we're like, it's almost like a feeling of helplessness. Like, I can't do anything about it, right? Acceptance is an acknowledgement of what is happening right now and not trying to wish for something else. Very difficult. Crazy difficult. I know. All right. But this is really important because when we don't practice like an acceptance of what's going on with our mind, we naturally label. Alex was talking about, kind of good and bad meditations, right? So we're sitting down, we're meditating, right? And our mind is really agitated, right? Instead of us being like, my mind is agitated right now, which would be acceptance and acknowledgement of what's happening and not needing to, not wishing for the other thing. What happens? We're like, stupid work. Like, my mind's all over the place. Why can't I do this? Right? Like, so this is a very important step. And it's difficult, but there is a tip I'm going to give you that may sound corny. I certainly felt that way when I first learned it. But I have found it to be really, really helpful. And this is changing the way you talk about yourself, really, kind of self-talk in a way. So the next time we're starting to feel anxious or feel frustrated or feel whatever, what if we change the way that we kind of acknowledge this, right? Instead of saying, I am so angry right now, or I am so anxious right now, what if we say, my mind is experiencing some feelings of anxiety right now, right? My mind is experiencing some frustration. We are decoupling I from the feelings, right? And this is really important because it helps us to disconnect passing feelings from core us, right? Self-image, things that we think are inflexible, like concrete things about ourselves. I am an anxious person. Well, no, like, you have feelings of anxiety. They may come more often than somebody else, but not always anxious, right? So changing the way that we acknowledge what's happening with our words, even like actually saying to ourselves, right? My mind is experiencing this. Or I don't know who said this, but it was the last time I taught this class, somebody said something so brilliant. If you're here, take credit for it, please. They said that they like to say, my mind is experiencing some technical difficulties. And I thought that was hilarious, right? So not only is that a great example of changing the way we're talking about ourselves, but it's funny, right? It's like lighthearted. We are changing our mood here. We're changing the way that we associate with this thing that's happening, all right? So for now, acceptance, in terms of practicing, we're just going to say, instead of I am feeling so anxious or whatever, my mind is experiencing some anxiety. Cool. Look, and you won't believe it at first. You'll be like, whatever, that's so weird and corny, and I'm not going to do that. Keep doing it. Trust me. Okay? Good. Mary, right, I mentioned that one. So true. Yes. Mary, was that your anecdote about, I can't remember, but man, that made me laugh. It was brilliant. It's brilliant. Okay. I'm moving on because we got one more thing to talk about. So we've recognized, we've accepted, all right? Look, acceptance doesn't mean that we're happy about it. You know? We're not like, I'm anxious. Oh, awesome. No, it's just like, look, I'm anxious right now. Boom. acknowledgement. So we've done that. Now what? Now we're going to create space. This is like the kind of culmination of us managing our overwhelmed thoughts, creating space. And I'm talking about mental space, but the concept of mental space is bizarre. And so we can look at physical space as a way to kind of understand what mental space can do for us, because they really achieve the same thing. So I'd like you to imagine, right, that you're at an art gallery, right? I don't know. I'm doing a new analogy. Oh, Mary, you remembered it? Yeah, that was a good one. I don't know, whoever it was. How do you create space, though? It's impossible for me. Oh, we're going to do that. It's not impossible. Imagine you're at an art gallery. You're all by yourself, which is, lovely, right? There's no crowds or anything. And you go into this one exhibit, and there's one painting, right? And you get up really close to that painting, right? You're looking at it, right? You're like, oh, we can't really make out what's going on here, but I can see the colors and stuff like that, right? And then we take a couple steps back. What happens? Oh, I'm starting to see things a little differently, right? Nothing's changed, the same painting, right? But I'm seeing a little bit more of it, right? We step back a little more. Oh, now the entire frame is coming to focus, right? I can see the whole thing. I'll step back a little bit more. Oh man, look at this room. Oh, the paint, the way they decorated this whole room is really cool, right? So physical space, distance from something changes the way that we see it, right? Now, going and seeing art is lovely, but what about anxiety or something like that, right? You ever notice how you give really great advice, but giving advice for yourself is impossible, right? Why is that? It's about space, right? Your best friend is having a problem, right? Oh man, this thing happening at work or whatever. You're like, yeah, just, yeah, that's ridiculous. But do this, this, and this. It's so simple, right? We're looking at it. It's so simple. But if it's us, it's like, oh, it's so complex. Blah, blah, blah. How am I going to do this? Our mind's ruminating. Space. When we are helping a friend, we are looking at the situation from back here, right? The kind of storm cloud is over here, or over our friend's head, unfortunately. And we're over here and we're looking at it. Bigger picture, right? Objectively. When it's our issue, storm is right over our head. And that can result in wildly different responses to things. So, we are going to practice in our second meditation here, creating space, right? And there are a lot of ways to do this. Marvin asked, how do we do that? There are a lot of ways. We're gonna first of all, practicing meditation is a practice of creating space. Are you seeing a pattern here? Meditation is like a 3-for-1 deal with everything, because when we are meditating, right, we're focusing on something, and all of those storm clouds that are overhead, they start to go over here, right? They're spreading out a little bit, right? But there are a lot of other ways we can do this. We're going to do a meditation, but I'm going to tell you my favorite way of practicing creating space, and there's another one that is a non-meditation practice for when you're not meditating most of your day. Hey, Andre, because you don't have to deal with the emotions behind it. Telling someone else to do it is easy. It's such an interesting thing. Now, when you give your best friend advice, this is the exercise of practicing creating space. You're having a problem, right? You're anxious, or maybe you had to do a presentation at work, right? You're really nervous about it, right? You're like, what if I screw up? What if I say something dumb? Right? That's happening to you, and you're really anxious about it. Now, what if you flip the situation, right? just like we said before. Your best friend's giving that presentation, right? Really imagine it. Not like, oh, walk in the shoes of someone else. No, like actually use your imagination and flip the situation. What advice would you give your friend? What advice would you give them, right? And then compare that to the advice you were giving yourself and think about which one is better, right? Not having to deal with the emotions behind it is really an analogy of space, right? You would be kinder to your friend, right? Like there's like natural compassion. Hey, look, I've said something dumb at work before. No big deal, right? It happens to all of us. Like that's such a wonderful response. Why don't we tell that to ourselves? Like what is the like logical reason that we don't take that better advice? Because the storm clouds over our head, like Andre was saying, right? The storm clouds over our head and we can't see through it, right? So we have to create some space so we can see the situation with a little more objectivity, and then maybe we'll have a different response to it. And again, look, I'm not saying this is easy, right? If this was easy, then nobody would be teaching meditation. It'd be done. We wouldn't need any of this. Yeah. It's a practice, right? But we can change our mind. We do it all the time, right? We teach ourselves things. We can change what we're familiar with. That's the beauty of your mind, is you can change what it's familiar with. Cool? Okay. Okay, we're going to do meditation, and this meditation, Marvin, I can't describe it, but the first time I caught myself thinking it was like a light bulb went off. And it hit me fast, and it was the only time I felt it that way, and I'm trying to feel it the same way. This is very similar to what Alex was talking about. And I think next week's class on attachment is going to be really good for this. I'm telling you, it's really difficult, right? Of course it is. When something feels great, we're like, oh, I want to do that again. That was great, right? You know? So it's totally natural, right? It's challenging. Like, next week, we're going to talk more about that. So we're going to do a meditation. Aaron, perspective. Yes. Perspective shifting is a great way of creating space, but not superficially. Not like, oh yeah, what would I tell my friend? Like literally put yourself there. Use the imagination. Okay, so we're going to do a meditation. It's going to start pretty similar. And then we're going to do a little bit of a visual exercise that is about creating space. So this is a meditation that you can use to practice creating space, right? Practice getting familiar with creating space. Okay. Cool. So go ahead and close your eyes, get comfy again. And let's start by practicing mindfulness, practicing recognition. How are you feeling now? I'm not comparing it to before. That's gone. Just now. What does your mind feel like? Is it busy? Focused? Whatever. Doesn't matter. We are just noticing. Having done that, you can now turn your attention once again to your breath, breathing in and out, gently, naturally. No expectations. We're just breathing. That's it. This is a good practice of acceptance. We are just breathing. Maybe you notice your mind drifting at some point. Another opportunity to practice some of the techniques that we talked about today. Noticing your mind drifting. That's practicing mindfulness. And then what do we do when we notice that our attention has drifted from our breath? We just accept, acknowledge. My mind was getting a bit distracted. And then we guide our focus back to breathing, back to our intention. We're not judging ourselves, not being hard on ourselves. Our mind will drift. That's fine. We acknowledge it, bring it back. Single-pointedly focused on breathing. Keeping a little eye out for whenever our attention drifts. Acknowledging, accepting, and then just guiding our focus back. No big deal. Breathing in and out, gently, naturally. Today we talked about 3 things. Recognizing your thoughts early, accepting the thoughts that you're having, and creating space. So for the last remaining couple of minutes, we're going to do a thought exercise on space. I would like you to imagine, just bring this image to mind. You are sitting on a bench in an open field. There's nothing else around you. You can see for miles. Blue skies, sunny, warmth. That's what's above you. Just imagine it. Bring it to mind. Way off in the distance, you see a distant mountain range. And over that range, you see some dark clouds. And every once in a while, you'll see a quick flash of light. It's a lightning storm over the mountains. And as we're sitting on the bench, what do we say to ourselves watching this lightning storm? Miles and miles away, we can barely see it. What's our reaction? Whoa. Did you see that? Oh, I think there's another bolt of lightning there. Whoa, I just saw another one. There is a level of fascination, interest in what is a very violent weather system. But because of space, we view it differently. We view it with interest. As you're sitting on this bench in the open field, the storm starts to move a little closer. You can start to see the lightning more clearly. The wind starts to pick up, blowing the grass around you. And as the storm gets closer and closer, how do you react? Are you still fascinated? Are you still interested, intrigued? Or does panic set in? Fear? Space is directly related to perspective. In this example, we are looking at physical space to see that when a storm is miles off in the distance, we look at it with interest. But when it is above our head, we look at it with fear. It is the same storm in both situations. The only thing that has changed is space. The same is true for your mind. Feelings of anxiety, depression, loneliness, jealousy, anger, frustration, whatever it is, these are like storms directly above your head. And through meditation, you can start to learn how to create just a little bit of space, even just microscopic amount. But even that little bit of space compounds into changing your perspective slightly. We can start to look at our anxiety with more interest, less fear, more fascination, less panic. Just sit with that. No more thinking. Just sit here, enjoy breathing, and let that truth set in that you are able to teach yourself to create space, to help with feelings of an overwhelmed mind. Okay, when you're ready, you can relax. And it may be like, well, we're just like doing a thought. What is that? It's not meditation. Yeah, it is actually. Because what is meditation? Focusing on one thing, noticing when your attention drifts, bringing it back. So we started by focusing on our breath. We ended by focusing on an image that we brought up, this image of being in an open field. And what's happening is we're starting to make a connection between space and perspective, space and our reaction, right? Another good analogy that I use often is if you think about a storm cloud, right? Storm cloud over your head, right? We're like, the sky is stormy, but the sky is not stormy, right? If you take a little plane up there, it's blue skies, right? We forget, right? When the storm is over our head, we forget that there's blue skies above it, right? So we want to create a little space. We want to go up in our airplane and then look down at it a little bit, right? So this is a good 3-step system to start thinking about. And they're all equally important. Don't try to do all of them at once. Just choose which one is connecting with you and practice. Give it a shot, right? Maybe you're like, oh, you know what? I feel like doing the mindfulness alarm is enough for me. Cool, do that. Maybe you're like, you know what? I like this changing how I talk about myself. I'll do that one. Right? Maybe you're like, hey, the space thing's kind of cool. Let me see what I can, like, analogies I can think of that. Pick one and give it a shot, right? Just enjoy it. See what happens, right? Sherry, allowance came to mind. Very cool. All right. Very cool. Yeah. And like, this is my analogy, right? The storm thing. I actually experienced this. I have like a vivid memory of it. But you will have your own analogies that you connect with. So feel free to like explore. All right. Cool. Gail, thank you. I hope you get a nice restful night's sleep. Carol, thank you so much. That's very kind. I'm glad you had a good time. Thank you, Beverly. Thank you, everyone. I really appreciate you being here. I love teaching meditation. And guess what? I can't do that without you guys. So thanks for taking time out of your day. Julie, thanks for such a relaxed approach. This is my first session with you. Oh, great. Julie, welcome. Thank you. Yeah, that's kind of what I'm after, right? I think we can approach meditation from a very relaxed standpoint, right? It doesn't have to be some weird thing. Cool. Okay. So, if you had a good time, come on back next week. We're going to do a class on attachment, feelings of attachment, which kind of dovetails into like happiness. Where are we looking for happiness? So I think that's what we'll focus on next week. And if you have not subscribed to my YouTube channel and you would like to, that'd be cool. Big help for me. Puts a big smile on my face. And nice for you too. You get notifications when I'm going live. All my old videos are up there. So maybe you're like, hey, I really want to learn about how I can get better sleep with meditating. I did that class. It's up there. You can go check it out. And you can see me wearing one of the 4 shirts that I wear on all of my videos. So anyone who does choose to subscribe, thank you in advance. I appreciate it. And if you're like, hey, you know what, this is cool. I'm really into this. I'd like to see like where I can go with this. I teach one-on-one meditation classes. I do them over Zoom. They are very laid back. We have some fun. We'll learn about what you want to learn about. Maybe you're like, you know what, Keith, I really want to learn about anxiety. It's really something that's bothering me. Boom. All right, we can focus on that. So if that's interesting to you, or if you have any questions, like if you're interested in one-on-one or you have any questions about any of this stuff, just email me. I'm going to put my email in the chat right now. You're laughing at my 4 shirts. It's true. You know it, Helen. You know it. Ellen's been here long enough. There's only 4. I'm going to put my email in the chat right now. It is keith@meditationbreaks.com. And now I will concentrate. I have typed it correctly, I hope. That is my email. Reach out. If you have any questions, you want to do a one-on-one, just want to say hi, whatever. That's my email. Feel free to ask me anything at any time. Thank you, Pat, Patrick, Patricia, Sherry. Really good conversations today, everyone. Marvin, thank you. Riley, Julie, Rosa, thank you so much. I love these conversations. These are the best classes when we're bouncing ideas off each other. So thanks for being an active participant. Thanks for being here. I'll see you guys next week. Take care.